Today, we're going to dive into a couple of legal concepts that, believe it or not, you probably deal with almost every single day and you don't even realize it. We're talking about bailment and pledge.
Just think about it for a second. When was the last time you dropped off a jacket at the dry cleaners? Or left your laptop with a tech for a repair? Heck, even just handing your phone to a friend to show them a picture counts.
Yep, congratulations. In every single one of those moments, without signing a single piece of paper, you created a legally binding agreement. It's like an invisible contract that just happens. And it comes with its own set of rules and responsibilities for everyone involved. Kinda wild, right? So how does all this invisible stuff work? Well, here's our game plan. First, we'll talk about this contract you never knew you signed. Then, we'll break down exactly what bailment is. After that, we'll get into the responsibilities that come with it, see what happens when the stakes get higher, compare bailment to something called a pledge, and then we'll tie it all back to your everyday life.
So let's start there. This whole idea of a contract you never signed. Even though these agreements are usually just unspoken, they are very, very real, and they're governed by established legal principles that are there to protect everybody.
All right, so what's the official name for this everyday legal handshake? Let's get right to the heart of it and figure out what exactly you're doing when you hand over your keys to the valet.
The legal term we're looking for is bailment. It actually comes from an old French word, balayer, which just means to deliver. And that's really the perfect way to think about it. Under the Indian Contract Act, it's defined as the temporary transfer of your stuff for a specific reason, with the crystal clear understanding that you're getting it back.
Now, every bailment has two key players. The bailor, that's the person who owns the goods and delivers them, and the bailee, that's the person who receives them for a bit. So, when you give your car to the valet, you're the bailor. The valet, they're the bailee. See? Simple as that. Now, for any situation to officially be a bailment, you need 5 key ingredients. First, there has to be a contract, even an implied one. Second, the goods have to be delivered. Third, there has to be a clear purpose, like getting your suit cleaned. Fourth, and this is crucial, only possession changes hands, not ownership. You still own your suit. And finally, there has to be a promise to return the exact same goods. That last part is why this only works for movable things, and it's why putting money in a bank isn't a bailment. You're not getting those exact same groupie notes back. Okay, so once you're in a bailment contract, what are the rules of the game? Well, both the owner and the temporary holder have specific legal duties they've got to follow. It's a two-way street.
Let's start with the bailor. That's you, the owner. Your main job is to be honest. You are legally required to tell the bailee about any known problems with the goods. There's a classic legal example about lending someone a horse that you know is vicious without telling them. If they get hurt, you're on the hook. You also have to pay for any necessary expenses and, of course, take your stuff back when the job's done.
And this duty gets even more serious when money is involved. In a famous case from way back in 1881, someone hired a carriage that had a broken bolt, which led to an injury. The court said the owner was responsible for making sure the carriage was safe, even if they didn't know about that specific defect. The bottom line is, when someone's paying you, your responsibility as the bailor goes way up.
Okay, now let's flip it. What about the bailee, the person holding the goods? Their number one job is to take reasonable care. Basically, they need to treat your stuff as well as any regular, careful person would treat their own things. They can't just take your car for a joyride if you only gave it to them for parking. They have to keep your goods separate from theirs, and they absolutely must return them on time. Oh, and they also have to return any accretions, so if you're taking care of a friend's cow and it has a calf, well, you're legally bound to return both the cow and the calf.
So now, let's look at what happens when things go a little sideways, or when bailment is used for something a bit more serious, like a high-stakes financial deal. This is a classic problem that comes up. Remember that duty not to mix goods? What happens if the bailee messes up and mixes your property with their own stuff without asking you first?
Well, the law is pretty clear about this. There are 2 possible outcomes. If your stuff can be separated, let's say they mix your labeled sacks of rice with their own, the bailee has to pay for the cost of separating everything. But if the goods can't be separated, like if they mix your bag of high-quality flour with their low-quality flour, then the bailee is on the hook for the total loss of your goods. They have to pay you back for everything.
And this idea of higher stakes leads us right into a more serious kind of bailment. What if you're not just giving something for safekeeping, but you're actually handing it over as security to guarantee you'll pay back a loan? Well, this special high-stakes version of bailment has its own name. It's called a pledge.
So a pledge is a type of bailment, but it's got some really important differences. How are they different exactly? Let's put them side by side, and it'll all become super clear.
So here's the formal definition. A pledge is when you bail goods specifically and only as security for a debt. The name's even changed to show how serious it is. The person giving the goods is now a pawner, and the person receiving them as security is the pawnee. Think about giving jewelry to a lender as collateral for a loan. That is a textbook pledge.
The differences really pop when you compare them. First, the purpose. A bailment can be for pretty much any reason: repair, storage, whatever. A pledge is only for securing a debt. Second, the right to use the goods. A bailee might be allowed to use them, but a pawnee absolutely cannot. And here's the biggest difference of all: the right to sell. A bailee, like your dry cleaner, generally can't sell your suit, but a pawnee, if you don't pay back that loan, they have the legal right to sell your pledged goods to get their money back. That's a huge deal.
Okay, we've gone through a lot of legal theory. Let's wrap this up by bringing it all back home and talking about why any of this actually matters in your day-to-day life.
If there's one golden rule to remember from all this, it's this: all pledges are a type of bailment, but not all bailments are pledges. Giving a necklace as collateral for a loan? That's a bailment. But just leaving your coat at a restaurant's cloakroom, that is not a pledge.
So, here are the 3 big things to walk away with today. Number 1, you are part of these bailment contracts constantly, way more than you think. 2, both the owner and the temporary holder have clear legal duties to be careful and honest. And 3, a pledge is that special kind of bailment used to secure a loan, and it comes with that powerful right to sell if the debt isn't paid.
Now that you can kind of see the legal wiring between these simple everyday actions, you might start noticing them everywhere. So I'll leave you with a final question. What other invisible contracts will you notice in your world today?